meaning it's far more likely that you'll get discovered as a music producer on Instagram than it is that you'll get discovered on SoundCloud. What's going on, everybody? This is TAETRO, your electronic music mentor, and welcome back to an all-new episode of Mentor Monday. If you don't know, Mentor Monday is a segment on the channel where we talk all about the more philosophical and less technical sides of being an electronic musician and music producer. Today, I want to talk a little bit about how we really limit ourselves when we consider ourselves to just be musicians. Let me put this into perspective a little bit. I'm an electronic musician and a music producer, and right now you're watching me look into a camera and talk. You can see MIDI controllers in the background, you know that I'm a producer, but I'm not actually making music right now. My main point here is that it's not all about making music. It's about how you're going to get your music out there in the first place. So a lot of people reserve themselves to saying, well, I'm just a musician, I can't do all the video stuff, I can't be on Instagram because I'm not a photographer, and those are really just excuses. Even though our content as music producers is not necessarily visual, we still need to be able to communicate that in a visual way because the main platforms that people are consuming content on are visual platforms. Meaning it's far more likely that you'll get discovered as a music producer on Instagram than it is that you'll get discovered on SoundCloud. I know that this might be a tough pill to swallow, but it's nothing that we can't overcome by learning the tools of the trade. Now, like I mentioned before, I've got the tools of my trade behind me, but those aren't the only tools. The camera that's filming this right now is one of the most important tools in my music production and electronic music career. It's not an instrument, it's not a device that's inherently musical, it's there to document everything that I do in a way that people will find visually appealing and will actually take the time to figure out what it is that I do. Documenting what you do as a music producer is just as important as actually producing music in 2019. There's no use spending time complaining that in order to be a successful music producer, you have to master all these different visual platforms, or complaining that you're spending a lot of time on visuals and not a lot of time on your sound. There's no use in complaining about that because that's the game. You wouldn't sit down at a game of Monopoly and then complain that you have to buy and sell property. That's just the game. And this, social media for music producers, this is the game that we are playing. You can't hate the game. If you complain and you fight the game, you're just not going to be playing, which means you can't win. And other people around you will start to win. Spending time resenting the current state of things is never a good way to spend your time. Imagine this. You're a music producer and you're about to put out a brand new single. It's fire. It's really dope. You put in so much work into creating this track, you launch it, you put it out there, distribute it everywhere, you have 0 to 500 followers on your different platforms, you put the music out there, it gets about 30 plays. So now you've spent all this time creating this track that you love that is actually fire, objectively fire, let's call it, and you put it out there and barely anybody listens to it because you don't have the audience, because you didn't want to play the game. Now imagine you start focusing on social media. You build up an Instagram, you build up Facebook, you build up YouTube, all a little bit at a time, and you're growing your audience on those different platforms. It looks great. I go to your profile, you look like a legit music producer. So I'm going to hit that follow button. And then a bunch of other people are going to do the same thing. So you're building up that audience bigger and bigger and bigger. Now you're going to release a fire track, and when you do that, you're going to post about it across your social media, the Facebook page that you've built up, the Instagram page that you've built up, and your YouTube channel. Since your audience is already built in, you already have a collection of followers there, as soon as you post that new track, they're basically all getting a notification that you put out a new track, or it's going to show up in their newsfeed. What I'm saying is, building up your audience goes far beyond just the music. And now we have these social media tools to help us find that audience and help us get in front of that audience, which I talked about last week, finding your audience. We can all find an audience. It's just about building it up and building up the content and giving that audience something to consume. And it's not reasonable to expect that every day I'll be able to give somebody a new track on my social media. I can document my process of making a new track, take cool pictures of my studio, give my thoughts on a controller, give my thoughts on music production and music business. These are all ways you build up an audience in 2019 on social media. The longer you fight this as a real function of the music industry, the longer you will struggle to get your music heard. This seems like a pretty late in the game subject to be talking about, and I know everybody talks about social media, but I still see complaints around the music production community about people wanting to just focus on music and not have to deal with social media or anything, and those people are just struggling. Spending time complaining instead of spending time solving the issue. The issue being that this business is ever changing, especially in an industry like the music industry, and we need to keep up. It's the only way we're going to survive. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Mentor Monday. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. More importantly, share it with somebody who might find it helpful, somebody who maybe needs to hear this advice. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy live electronic music performances, tutorials, and content to make you a more productive producer. Thanks so much for watching. This has been TAETRO, your electronic music mentor. Have a good one.